Hey guys, welcome to the Admin Sloth channel. Just been thinking a lot about enterprise apps and things like that lately. I've really grown to love the way Google does things. They might not be as cheap or detailed as what Outlook has to offer. Microsoft has to offer in terms of applications. Microsoft has things like Outlook, and then their Office suite. But my complaint with that level of detail is that most people don't need it. Um, Google's apps have gotten phenomenally a lot better, and um, unless you're needing like heavy word processing or Excel spreadsheets, G Suite seems like it's a much more viable option for a basic user. I'm going to say basic user is just somebody who wants to just set it up and forget it. Um, I've always felt like Google does a really good job with crowdsourcing their email client. So you don't see as much junk mail. You don't get spam or people trying to target you because Google has such a huge footprint that they can identify potential hazards a lot better. Um, and since the files are on your computer directly, you won't accidentally download viruses to your computer. It's just not a thing unless you're using, of course, a client like Outlook or um, Apple Mail, for instance. Um, but that's really just that could be up to your IT department to um, potentially filter that kind of stuff. I'd have to look into that stuff a little bit more. I know with Microsoft they have to manually filter a lot more stuff. So that'd be interesting to research a little bit more. I remember a lot of the recent stuff with like crypto mining and the ransomware attacks. A lot of it was people were getting emails to their inbox that looked like they were from the business, but they were actually from like Russia or China, and they were actually just spoofing the email address. And a simple fix for that is obviously just block, problem countries that you're obviously not doing business with. So just close anything coming out of China and Russia, and they probably would have been okay. In fact, that was a big thing that a lot of big security firms were actually doing is they just block those countries entirely, and then they don't have to deal with it as much, which is nice. Um, so that's nice about Google is that it's all cloud-based, and Google prevents malicious stuff from being downloaded. The other thing is security of your IP. So since everything's typically browser-based, you don't have to worry about if someone were to take your computer, steal your computer. It's just a quick password change, and then your cloud account basically will disconnect. Could somebody potentially go in the cookies and figure that stuff out? Yeah, possibly, but they don't have a direct route to all of the data, most likely, because of that. So that's another nice thing. I feel like Microsoft has the options, but by default, people are lazy and usually store stuff locally. I think that's why a lot of people are going towards virtual machines in the cloud. So you just connect to something like Azure to connect remotely, so that way you're in a secure environment, and then if something happens, then all your data is still in that secure environment, and your computer doesn't matter. That's probably the best way to secure things. And then it's up to the IT team um, to identify anomalies, like why is this person all of a sudden logging in from some another state, so they can identify that some credentials have been stolen potentially. The other really nice feature with Google is a lot of business apps I've noticed, they easily identify with Google. So I've been playing around with apps like Slack, Waveform, um, Trello. There's a lot of apps out there. And what happens is you can tell it to sign in using your Google account. And a lot of those apps kind of have like a web-based portal to Google, so it's just a quick sign-in process. And then once you're signed in, it says, hey, you're actually a business account. Would you like to allow invites or allow other people who have the same email address to just to be automatically signed into their Google account and be up and running? And then you just hit yes, and then all your coworkers already have access to that. I thought that's a really awesome feature and smart feature with Google. Microsoft, it's sometimes hit or miss, and I find the process a little more tedious sometimes. So that's one of the features that I really like. That's awesome. Something I've really noticed on, because I usually do a lot of my work on my MacBook, just because I find that certain features are a little bit easier to just get it. With Mac OS, I just tend to have the computer get out of my way a little bit more, and so I can just focus on just getting work done. But anyways, a lot of the apps are web-based. I was playing around with. Sorry, I'm looking over here because my MacBook's right here. But a lot of the web apps that I'm using are kind of web-based. So Waveform is. I'll probably do a video on that. But it's basically just a glorified Chrome browser. Uses the same Chrome apps, so it has like 1,500 extensions, so that it very much just gets the browser stuff out of your way, and you can just have one location for all your notifications and all that stuff, and have the desktop actually notify you like, hey, you got a new notification in this app, or you got a new email automatically. And it has a really well laid out system, but it's like I said, it's a Google browser basically. So that must be something that Google's actually doing as an offering for, especially for business clients, and that's awesome because that means it's going to be secure because it's being provided by Google, and yeah, ease of use. I think that's the biggest thing I've been finding is as I'm diving into some of these apps, I'm like, yeah, you have 50 million different variations, but that's great, but how can I simplify this? Is this going to be a good fit? For what my needs are, or things like that. Like for instance, it's kind of nuts with the variations and everything I do, because like I've been looking for a really good note taking app because I've been using Google Docs for the last year, but the problem with Google Docs is it's difficult to keep organized and difficult to just get ideas down on paper. And Google Keep is just a mess, in my opinion, in terms of the way that it lays things out. I've recently been using OneNote, which is a Microsoft feature. The way it lays out things is very simple and easy to digest and searchable. The only thing I wish it had was a proper tagging system and color coding. So with tags, I like to be able to just have my notes and stuff, and then also have it tagged as different items. So it becomes a little bit quicker to digest. So I can just pick up really quickly and go, oh yeah, that's the note I'm looking for. Because I have ADHD, I have a hard time doing raw memory recall. So word associations and hyper organization is what keeps me allows me to remember things a lot quicker. So having color coordination, so I'm like, okay, I'm looking for the color blue and looking for this tag. I can just quickly look through my list, identify those two things, and then simplify it. But I haven't found any good apps that are inexpensive to do that. I remember the OmniFocus features had something similar, but I haven't felt like paying for it just because I'm taking so many notes that yeah, I don't know. I'll have to play around with that. But anyways, that was just kind of my thoughts and sorry ramblings of stuff I've been studying. And it's interesting to see how Google, they have a very different approach to how they do things than Microsoft does. Microsoft is very much focused on giving you all of the features without telling you why. And that's always a problem for me. Sorry, just noticing that's kind of bright. So yeah, Google is just oversimplification. They kind of take like an Apple approach, and say, hey, these are the options. They're great. If what we are offering is not enough for you, they at least give you good groundwork. They have the meeting apps. They have notes taking apps, collaboration apps now. I think with Google and something like Slack, you can be very efficient and it's very comparable to what Microsoft's offering, but simplifying, because people don't have time to learn things that are too complicated, and people don't tend to pay attention enough for things like emails, which are been a huge problem for people with ransomware attacks. I work at just a customer-facing IT shop, and people never understand what email is. They barely know what their passwords are, and we need to find a better way to take those things away from them so they don't have to worry about them. Because people will just leave them in notepads or sticky notes on their computer, and that's not ideal. So I'm probably gonna have to look into that sometime and probably do a review on it. I know there's options like LastPass, KeePass, and Jump Cloud. So you're not sharing credentials, but at the same time you're able to collaborate. I might do a video like that sometime. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on between Microsoft and Google. Yeah, I probably just need to get an enterprise license of Microsoft and just start playing around with it a bit more. But I always feel overwhelmed whenever I look through Outlook. I'm like, why are you guys making this so complicated? Well, why isn't my Google Contacts and Calendar not syncing? Why do I have to install something for iCloud to have my calendar and contacts to sync up? Yeah, it feels half done most of the time with Windows. Windows environment, Windows 10 is fine. It works great. I find I'm more efficient and productive when I'm on Mac OS because of the multiple desktops features and stuff like that. I'm using both. I'm literally recording on a Lenovo laptop, but for some reason I still keep going back to my MacBook just because of ease of use. It just gets out of your way. But anyways, so yeah, that's my thoughts on Google. It just gets out of your way so you can get work done. Notifications are great. You can do password resets on the Google admin app right from your phone. So if you have a small team, one of your team members like, hey, I forgot my password. You're just like, all right, here's the new password temporarily set up. You just tell the app to tell them to create a new one once they log in, and it just takes care of itself. And then they give you audit logs, which are fantastic as well. Yeah, if you're looking for an introduction to IT and not wanting to have to spend a whole lot, I think they charge like $12 per user, which I know with Microsoft you can restrict things a little bit more so you're not paying as much. So if you have a huge team, you can reduce your costs. But with what Google's offering, it's hard pressed to not just go with them and give you a simple solution. But anyways, you guys have a great day, and yeah, I'm excited. I've really been excited to try out all these business class apps and start doing deep dives into them, finding things that fit my needs for what I have day to day.